Hello everyone, welcome back to another bedroom podcast. I'm actually in my bed this time, so I'm just seeing if I can set my phone up to charge. Oh, I can, look at that. On my little nightstandy thing, whilst also being plugged into my good podcast microphone. I hope you are well. This podcast is a funny one. I thought this podcast into being, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was. Some of you may know I am setting myself the goal this year in 2021 to get jacked. Not a very noble endeavour, but it's just for me. It's just something, setting myself this goal. I've always obviously enjoyed weight training, but I never really set myself any big goals. Did I say this was a bedtime podcast? Anyway, I'm in bed. Yeah, I did. I've chosen my least noisy pillow, so I hope you don't get too much noise there. So my friend sent me this video of Ronnie Coleman, I think it was. Arguably the greatest bodybuilder that ever lived. I think he won the Mr. Olympia 8 times. Anyway, that's by the by. I got to watching a number of different videos on this bodybuilding Instagram channel thingy, and they're very motivational for me with my specific goal. But lots and lots and lots of talk around, just digging deep, doing the work, grinding all the years of putting the effort in and this, that and the other. And I guess I was like, oh, this is quite cool and motivational. And I guess some people get inspired by those videos. I guess in a way I do and did and etc. And I thought, I've been called inspiring, and people have said, oh Martin, you've really inspired me, this, that and the other. And I do find it really touching when people say that. It's quite an honour. It's quite humbling to be able to inspire another human being to be a better version of themselves, to elicit some of the strength and qualities that are within someone. And so I just kind of pondered that yesterday. Anyway, this book, I don't read books. I have never read a book since, I guess, I was about 15. To Kill a Mockingbird, I believe it was. Good book, that. Never in my adult years. I do not like reading. However, for whatever reason, in the last 2 months, I think I've mentioned this elsewhere in my podcasts. In fact, maybe the one that's going out this Friday, actually, which is about Stoicism. Friday, Saturday, whenever they're supposed to go out, Saturday. We don't have regular listeners will know we don't have a schedule. Anyway, I'm reading this book, Man's Search for Meaning. I bought this book, I think again, I've said this elsewhere, sorry, because to kind of, in a way, support the work of this guy, even though I believe he's now passed away, Viktor E. Frankl, but also because I've seen so many of his quotes online, and I find them excellent. And I thought, I just buy books where I think the author is a good person, and I just never read them, ever. I literally have an amazing bookshelf of and I've read like a sentence or a paragraph in the whole book. for some reason or another, one, it might simply be because the book is so thin that and this probably for those of you out there who are practitioners, it's that thing, isn't it? A technique that I've taught before. It's kind of, I suppose it has its roots a bit in like motivational interviewing, but yeah, I suppose that's probably the best roots to attribute it to. Giving someone a task so easy that it's almost embarrassing to not attempt or start it. Like, oh, can you do 10 press-ups? No, 10 press-ups is super hard. Okay, cool. Can you do 1 press-up? Of course I can do 1. Okay, cool. As part of your training program, get you to do 1 press-up every day. Well, that's ridiculous. I'm not just going to do 1 press-up. Okay, but can you just do 1? Can you promise me you'll do 1? Or, there's different techniques. I'm not going to go into it now. But essentially, they do the 1, and no one ever does 1. They're down there and they do the 3. The next day they get down to do the 1. They end up doing 3 or the 4 or whatever. People use this for like, write 1 sentence to your book every single day. Just 1. Commit. And if you can't commit to 1 sentence, 1 word, like what can you commit to? If you can commit to nothing, then just give up. But what is the lowest common denominator? And then if you just take the time, so, I'm not going to do my piano practice today. Okay, do 1 minute of piano a day. Once you sit down, you pick up the pen, you play the first note, whatever. You read 1 sentence in a book every day. You end up reading 3 or 5, or you have more time one day, etc. Don't miss the day. There's also that whole thing of X's on a calendar and never wanting to break that chain. Anyway, this was such a small task, I guess. I thought I'd read it. And then all I thought to myself was, I'm just going to read the preface. And I read the preface and it was phenomenal. Anyone who's ever going to write a book, I guess in a way, you should also bear that in mind. That the preface can really do a lot. I've never thought that. Obviously I don't read books, but I read this preface and it just drew me in. And I'm now 74 pages in, so it's not that far, it's not that impressive. Some of you book readers would read like a book in a day. But this is huge for me. Anyway, I have just got to probably the most famous, and actually I picked this up to bring to bed tonight, and I wrote the review in my head. When people say what books, I just does anyone else have conversations in their head? Of course you do. And I was saying in my head to you guys, to Instagram, to whoever, to the people who ask me questions, what books do you recommend? And I would say the only book I've ever read, because I am going to finish this, I reckon, is Man's Search for Meaning. The book starts incredibly strong and then just fizzles out. And that's because probably for the last 5 pages or so, I've not been enjoying it as much. It's just a difficult read where I've been. The book, the Viktor E. Frankl is a concentration camp survivor. I'm kind of assuming some knowledge because I am not wanting to repeat other podcasts. But he's also a psychologist. In fact, I just literally saw it in the preface. Dr. Frankl, author, psychiatrist, sometimes asks his patients. I'm just going to read you this. Sorry, tangent, but this is amazing. Dr. Frankl, author, psychiatrist, sometimes asks his patients who suffer from a multitude of torments, great and small, why do you not commit suicide? From their answers, he can often find the guideline for his psychotherapy. In one life, there is love for one's children to tie to. In another life, a talent to be used. In a third, perhaps only lingering memories worth preserving. To weave these slender threads of a broken life into a firm pattern of meaning and responsibility is the object and challenge of logotherapy, which Dr. Frankl's own version of modern existential analysis, which is Dr. Frankl's own version. So anyway, basically this whole search for meaning, and so my point with this was, I'd written that review in my head, and I'm now super motivated again because I got to perhaps the most famous quote from his book. I'm just looking for it now. So he's essentially talking about, does man have no choice of action in the face of such circumstances? He kind of says, are we simply a product of the conditions and environment that we're kind of in our lives? Are we just a product of everything? Do we really have a choice, or do we just react to that stuff around us? And it's an interesting point. And I very often, as a tool in my own life, if I find myself annoyed with someone, or viewing someone else in a judgmental fashion, I often use this tool to say, well, what's led them to be like that? When I'm trying to forgive someone, what's led them to, like, I literally read this earlier today, like a child cannot be held accountable for the circumstances that they're kind of brought up in terms of, I guess, maybe that was to do with, I don't actually know what it was to do with, I guess, homelessness or refugees or something. I can't remember where I read it. It was on my computer. So I often think, that some bad children they are a product of their parenting. And at some point the buck has to stop. People have to take responsibility for their own situation, definitely. But at the same time, we can use grace, which is giving people something they don't deserve. Or mercy, not giving people what they do deserve, which sometimes is a smack in the face, or whatever, punishment, or whatever. So yeah, are people just a product of their circumstances? So he was essentially saying, and so what I want to say here is, like, I just found this hugely motivating. In one of my goals, which is just to live a good life, but also I find a lot of happiness in living a good life and being nice to others and being balanced. And it's a pursuit, I guess. Would I call it a pursuit? It's like a consistent trend and pondering and reading of my own. And it's like the thing in my life at the minute which is most motivating to me is self-improvement. My work is my life's work, and it's gone extremely well, and I've hit a point where I don't have much that makes me strive. So striving to do more in my career has motivated me and kept me happy for a long time in many ways. Obviously it's been a key source of stress as well. So and other things, having babies, bringing them up, etc. That's so easy now. Until the next stage of their lives, maybe teenage years, who knows. So anyway, it's motivating me, and this has motivated me to, and so I guess in a way, when I was reading this, I just jumped out of bed. I ran and grabbed the podcast microphone, and I thought, I'm just going to record this. Because I know I have some very loyal, is that the word? Long-time, regular listeners. And I just want to provide a bridge between Victor's super motivating words and you. So it's this bit here where he said, we who lived in concentration camps can remember the men, they were in a single-sex camp, who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. Now, these pieces of bread have so much significance. They are literally their lifeblood of happiness, topics of all their conversations all day long. They only get this tiny piece of bread to eat each day. Malnourished, it consumes all their thoughts. So imagine that. Imagine being that man or woman who is able to give away the last piece of bread. No matter how crap things are. And that's what I want, right? That it's kind of coming back to me a bit, the feeling, the rush of like energy from it is like, this maybe doesn't motivate you. It doesn't hit home with you. But for some of you, I hope it does. You may have had the crappiest of days. You may be having the crappiest of weeks. Months. We've just gone through 2020, right? And 2021 hasn't been much better yet for many people. Maybe having the crappiest of years. These men that we're talking about here, they are in a concentration camp. Death is imminent. They are abused physically and mentally daily. But yet they find it in themselves to walk through these huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. These men may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man or woman. But one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That's the famous quote, and that's what I wanted to read to you and pass on to you. And I hope motivate some of you with. I'm going to go to sleep motivated by that, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow motivated by that. Often I go through phases of getting up and using, I've been almost revising this in my head the past few months. Benjamin Franklin, I always get him mixed up with Napoleon. I know nothing about Napoleon, right? But I don't really know Benjamin Franklin either. But anyway, he was this super scheduled guy. And every single day, he had a period in his day, in the morning, where he said to himself, what good shall I do this day? Super cool way to live. But tomorrow, this is it. And also, so, I mean, my circumstances are amazing. I have a job, I have warmth, I have food, I have friends, I have family. Hopefully you guys listening to this have many, many things to be grateful for too. I have amazing children. Unfortunately, I won't see them tomorrow. But I also have some things going on right now which are, I would deem, horrific. Really, really horrific. Things that 99.9, maybe 8% of my followers will not know about, which I haven't ever said publicly and maybe never will. Sorry, that's a bit cryptic. Here's some honesty for you. I recorded a 50-minute podcast last night or the night before. Yeah, the night before, on this thing. And I said in that podcast that maybe in 5-10 years time I'd release it. It actually only contains there's one horrific thing, and then I've got a few other things that are just painful and not nice, and life circumstances going on. And everyone has their troubles, right? This isn't a pity party at all. I just am often reminded that people see others and think that their life is so great. I've spoken about this elsewhere, about gratitude and happiness. People view others and their snapshots and think that they are well. And it's why I said this to my friend, Darren Cartel. He put in his story someone saying, "How are you? Honestly!" exclamation mark. And I just replied back, "Come on, Darren, how are you? Honestly. No, be honest. No, seriously, honestly. No, but honestly, actually, honestly, how are you? Honestly." Like, I hate that question. It's so dumb. Sorry if any of you have ever asked that, but it is. Don't do that. You writing honestly on the end of that sentence isn't going to make him or anyone else be more honest. If he doesn't want to answer that question, he's just not going to answer it. And you writing honestly isn't going to make him honest. But it's also slightly offensive, as though you are essentially saying, if you said, "How are you?" Like, I'm sure it's said in good meaning, but just don't do it. Don't say it. Think about the words. Understand what the words coming out of your mouth mean. Someone famous once said that. I can't remember who. But yeah, how are you honestly? I completely lost my train of thought. So I recorded this podcast. I hadn't really. And it isn't supposed to be a pity party for me. I'm really good. These things are going on. Everyone has stuff going on. But I am reminded by constantly that people just view others and think that they have it great and that they have it so hard. But I consistently say this: look outside yourself and your circles and your perspective. Look down the rungs of the ladder. There are people who have it way worse than you, listening to this on some kind of electronic device, who probably, maybe, manage to be grateful for what they have when you don't, or aren't, or are looking up and feeling jealous or envious or bitter or lacking gratitude for what you have, because you are focusing on what you do not have. So let me go back to the motivating stuff. It's just this. Yeah, so I did actually read a bit more. I've just realised there were always choices to make every day, every hour, offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers which threaten to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you would become the plaything of circumstances, renouncing freedom and the dignity, to become moulded into the form of the typical inmate. That's maybe where I got to. And it's this thing, the typical inmate, the typical person on this planet that is so upset that the traffic lights didn't change the way they wanted to, that they're having to wait in a line in a queue, that a learner driver is in front of them making them late. Like, this is I want to encourage you and inspire you. I want to encourage you to take a deep breath when you listen to this and maybe do a random act of kindness. Or just think of what you're grateful for. Realise that things aren't that bad. Like, things suck right now, but they're not that bad. And then encourage you that no matter what your circumstances, maybe give you some of this motivational energy. This like inspiring thing of you do literally get to choose the way you view your circumstances. That is your freedom to do that, and that no one can take that away from you. And within that holds loads of power. There's a cool quote, something about worrying about tomorrow is like paying a debt that you do not owe. And it's true. So if you're worrying about stuff, worrying about your future, your job, if you can change something, focus on it. If it's out of your control, it's not worth worrying about. So I hope you've got some positive energy from this. Try and be that man or woman who walks through the huts comforting others, giving away your last piece of bread. I'm going to try and do that tomorrow. So until next time. Sending you all the love. Goodbye.